It is a great pleasure to welcome to the show Madeline Carter, an
Yes, thank you for
extraordinary
having me.
musician from St. John's, Newfoundland. How are you
Thank you
today,
for having
Madeline?
me. I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, and thank you again for joining the program.
Thank you for
Uh,
the invite. Glad to be here.
yeah, first question. How's the weather at St. John's, Newfoundland at the moment?
Right now it's pretty cloudy, a little chilly. I mean, it is still March here. We're supposed to get a snowstorm tonight, so fingers crossed for no school tomorrow.
Mhm.
But hopefully the snow will clear up in time for Patty's Day, which is Friday.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Do you have any plans for that?
Yeah, well, being a fiddle player in St. John's, Newfoundland, there's no shortage of wanting fiddle players here. So I've got 4 gigs just on Friday alone. So I'll be pretty busy. And then I got one gig on Saturday and one on Sunday as well.
Nice. Yeah. So you said you were going to school, right? Tell us about your current education.
Yeah, so I am studying applied music. So it's music, business, and technology at the College of the North Atlantic in
Mhm.
St. John, Newfoundland. It's a 2-year program, and I'm currently in my 5th semester, and there's 6 in total. So I'm almost done. I'll be done in June, and I'll be getting my diploma for that. So very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Very
So you
excited.
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned before that, so if the weather gets really bad, you guys get a day off?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, last year we got lucky because the winter wasn't as bad, but this year I think we've had 3 or 4 snow days already. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing it snows often in St. John's at this current
In Atlanta,
moment,
in
right?
Atlantic Canada in general, we do get pretty bad winters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was in Ontario for 4 years, so yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy in Canada, but I guess we're known for bad weather, so.
All right. So tell me about a bit about your personal upbringing. So you were born and raised in New Brunswick?
Yes, I was born and raised, well, I was raised in Allac. I was born in Amherst, Nova Scotia, raised in Allac, New Brunswick. Allac, I just tell people I was raised in Sackville, New Brunswick, because that's where Mount Allison University is. It's a little bigger of a town. Allac only has a gas station, so I just associate with Sackville mostly. But it's really close to the border of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Like where I live, back home, there we have a family, a big farmhouse, and we have over 100 acres of land that we live on, and it goes right to the border of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So that's how close we are.
Mhm.
So when people mistake me from Nova Scotia, I just go with it because it's literally so close.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and yeah, I played music. I started playing music when I was 5, and yeah,
Oh,
that's
what inspired you to play music?
well. I mean, I was obviously pretty young, but from what my parents told me, my favorite kids show was The Wiggles,
Mm.
um, from Australia. Obviously, very musical show. And yeah, very musical show. And I remember my grandparents always had fiddle music on at their house, and I would go over as a little kid and I would hold on to the fridge and I would just start bouncing up and down and holding onto the coffee table. Anything I could get a grab on, I'd just start dancing whenever there was music on. So, especially when I turned 5, my mom mentioned to me that she had a student in her class because she's a teacher that played fiddle. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like maybe I could take some lessons, little 5-year old. I'm wanting to take lessons. Didn't think it would go anywhere. And then when I was 6, they got me a real teacher because she was too busy with school to teach me. And so I got my real fiddle teacher when I was 6. And I was with her for 9 years and I just stuck with it. It was something that I always really loved. And it was the one thing that outside of family and friends, it was the one thing like hobby that actually made me really, really happy. And so I just stuck with it. Yeah.
Well, that's very nice to hear. So tell us about your sisters.
I'm the oldest of 4. So I am 19. I'll be 20 this year. So Marley's is the second oldest. She's going to be 18 in April. Maisie is the third oldest. She's going to be 15 in April. And then Millie is the youngest, and she's going to be 8 in May. So
Wow.
that's the age gap. Um, Basically between the oldest and the youngest, it's 12 years. So when I graduated high school, Millie was starting school. So very big age gap, really
Mhm.
made me feel really old. But yeah, I started playing music, and then Marlise wanted to get into it, obviously, looking up to her older sister. She wanted to do what I was doing, obviously, and it just kind of followed suit with all the other girls, and now all of us play music.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that all of you has an M as a start of
Yes.
first name.
Yeah, my dad's name is Morris, and so like I was Madeline, and that was just by chance. I was gonna be named actually Janelle.
Mhm.
And then one night my mom woke up in the middle of the night. She's like, "What about Madeline?" And didn't even realize, but she wanted the middle name to be Rose, so it was gonna be Janelle Rose, and then she thought Madeline, and didn't realize, but my great grandmother, I believe, no, great grandmother was named Madeline, but she always went by Barbara. And so my mom had no clue. And then Rose is after my other great grandmother. So I'm named after both of them. And yeah, it kind of worked out because Madeline Barbara, she was a musician herself. I never met her. She died really young of cancer. So neither did my parents. But yeah, she was a musician herself. So it's almost like it's my namesake to be a musician.
I see. So you said that all four of you played music. So does that mean that all four of you formed the Carter Girls?
Yeah, that kind of just happened. Well, I started performing when I was 9. And then I started getting into performing on a regular basis when I was 11. And the girls, they all played fiddle. Obviously, Millie, wasn't at that point thought of. So I did fiddle, and the girls all did fiddle. And then we started playing with a few, of the older citizens in our community, and we did old folks homes. We went to nursing homes, and we just spread the talent. We did like fundraisers, charity events. We just anything in the community that we could help out with our music. We wanted to help and put smiles on people's faces. So we started playing like that. And eventually, through all of that, we all did play fiddle. And then Marlise kind of liked the piano. And so she started doing more piano. And then Maisie eventually drifted off into piano accordion. We all kind of play guitar. And so we all kind of um, just branched out. And now we know multiple instruments. So it worked out great.
Yes. I do know I was in Peterborough for some time studying my undergraduate, and that's when I know another fiddler named Millie, Millie
Yeah.
Statgett, and she goes by Irish Millie. She's a
Irish
very
Millie,
fun,
right.
she's a very fun person. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was from her that I know of the Canadian folk music scene from either from all of the local areas from Ontario and beyond, and that's how I came to know you.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing, yeah, we met Millie, at, like I said, a fiddle camp. We met her at the Rolla Bay Fiddle Camp in Prince Edward Island,
Mhm.
and that was one of the many camps and festivals that we attended, back before COVID, in between the ages of, for me, 11 and 16, because during COVID, I turned 16. We used to do lots of music camps, and that's kind of how we continued with it. Like, we didn't get bored with music because we were constantly doing stuff with music. So we went to the Rollerball Music Camp. We went to the Gaelic College in Cape Breton multiple times. The Canadian Grandmasters, they had a fiddling camp that they hosted in Manotick, Ottawa, in Ontario. And so there was so many camps that we did. There was one in Tony River, Nova Scotia. We were constantly traveling for music, not only just gigs, but for festivals and camps as well to constantly evolve and learn more about different styles of music. And that's how we met so many people that we know. We crossed so many paths with different people, and Millie being one of them. So.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned that you also know the Marwood sisters, whom I know through Millie. Yeah, for an
Yeah, and we met them also at Rolla Bay. Sorry, we also met them at Rolla Bay, and we've tried to keep in touch because the last Rolla Bay that we went to was 2019. So obviously it's been 4 years now. Well, it'll be 4 years this year, and I think they did have it the last year, but we were just busy with work and stuff. We didn't really get the chance to go.
Mhm.
I think we went, but I've kept in touch with Willow specifically, and we have a lot in common outside of music as well. So she's become one of my really close friends.
I see. Yeah, I'm actually like more friendly, or I got to know Millie and Fern a bit more. So tell me about Willow. What do you guys have in common outside music?
Um, well, I mean, obviously there's an age gap. I am in my second year of university, and I think she's in grade 10. So there is a bit of an age gap, but um, I think I shared something on my Instagram story one day about one of my favorite TV shows, and it was The Vampire Diaries. And I know we connected on that. That was the first thing I remember connecting with her on. We both love The Vampire Diaries. It's one of our favorite shows. And then we got talking about just different shows that we like, and we both love Friends as well. And then we started talking about music, like different artists that we listen to. And she's a big Taylor Swift fan and One Direction fan, and I love them to pieces. Like I love Taylor Swift. I'm a Swiftie myself. And
Oh,
so just little things like that we started talking to each other about, and we realized we did have a lot in common outside of just our regular styles of music that we do as well, both being fiddle players as well. So that was really cool, and especially during COVID, we were both home a lot, so we did a few video chats and we watched a few shows together just over Zoom and things like that. And yeah, she's become one of my really close friends. I talk to her a lot. Yeah.
awesome. I'm going to address Taylor Swift a bit because I think half of the musicians that I've invited onto this show, I found out through this process of dialoguing with them that they really like Taylor Swift. I think Paige Penny, the your fellow musician from St. John's, she's a big Swiftie too.
Yes, I've yet to meet Paige, but I've heard nothing but good things about her, so I'm eager to meet her. And especially for singer-songwriters, I mean, I'm not one, like I don't call myself a singer-songwriter per se, but I'd say for singer-songwriter, she's got a great songwriting style, Taylor Swift, and a lot of people gravitate towards that. And she's got songs for every different moods. For me, that's the one thing I feel. So it doesn't matter what mood you're going through or what you're going through outside of your everyday life. Like there's always a song of hers that you can connect to, and it'll just make you feel better. So,
Mhm.
I've been a big Swiftie. I love country music, so I started when she was into her country stage, like
Oh,
probably 10 years ago. I actually did get to see her in concert in 2010. She came to Prince Edward Island as part of the Cavendish Beach Music Festival, and I was fortunate enough to see her there. So, yeah, I love her music. I'll always listen to Taylor.
mhm. Do you remember which song she played?
Yeah, it was in between um her Fearless album and her Speak Now album. And so she was playing a mixture of both songs. So of course, Love Story, she would have played that. Should Have Said No, Picture to Burn, all of her early stuff. But I remember she was also introducing some of her Speak Now songs that were coming out. And she was really promoting that era. So I remember her playing a song called Sparks Fly, which is the first track off of her Speak Now album. And she was wearing a purple sparkly dress, and the album cover for that album is her in a purple dress. So I remember she was promoting that at the time because I've got pictures of her on the stage with the purple sparkly dress, and I just remember that distinctly in my head. I was only 7 at the time, but I do remember that.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, tell me about how you come to like personally admire Taylor Swift, both for her music and for, I guess, her as a person.
She's such a really awesome person. Like she doesn't cause too much drama. She's a really easygoing person. I've never met her, but from what I can tell, like she doesn't like drama. She's really talented at what she does. And for me, I love listening to music. Like not being a musician, obviously, I listen to a lot of music, but I also do just want to sit down and listen or read a book or something. And I find a lot of her writing is really good. And like I said, a lot of her songs just, it doesn't matter what you're going through. There's always going to be a song of hers that'll help you through it if you're going through a tough time. And
Mhm.
she really helped me through a few tough times in my life with her songs. And just as a person, she's really nice and she's really vocal and she loves her fans. And she's constantly telling us as fans that she's thankful for us, and she's just she's a wonderful person. I wish I could meet her one day.
Yeah, I'm glad. And glad to hear it. And I hope you get to meet her too, probably at some point, maybe even open for one of her
That would
concerts.
be really cool.
Yeah. Have you listened to her latest album yet?
Yes, I have. My best friend from school and she's in Halifax and I was here in St. John's. We video chatted and we streamed the album when it came out. So for her, it would have been 1 o'clock in the morning. For me, it would have been 1:30 in the morning. And we listened to it start to finish. And then she said that she had a 3 a.m. announcement. I don't know if people have talked about that, but she announced that she was going to announce something else at 3 a.m. And so we were like, what do we do in between? So we watched her documentary in between, and then we stayed up and she released the vault tracks for midnight the 3 a.m. edition. So we listened to those as well. I didn't go to bed till probably 4:30 in the morning, but it was well worth it.
Mhm. Incredible. Yeah. So being a family band, the Carter Girls, I was actually reminded of that group, the Carter Family. I don't know if you've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Nashville. I always joke and I said they're my relatives, distant relatives.
Mhm. Yeah, they're the most famous member, I think, is June Carter, right? She
Yes, we're
got
marrying Johnny
married.
Cash.
Yes. Um, so how did you manage to become a family band?
Well, like I said, we all kind of just play music. All the girls followed me in playing music, and I don't want to take full credit of it, but since I was the oldest and I wanted to do it, they kind of all followed, and I was kind of like the driving force, I want to say. Um, and I mean, we were all into other things as well, but music was always sort of the one thing that all of us had in common. And like none of our parents played, but they loved the music, and our grandparents played as well, so they all had a huge factor into it as well. And they loved hearing us perform together and just playing fiddle tunes. And so eventually we started doing it more and more, and we started gigging outside of playing at nursing homes. We started doing a few events for the town and things like that. And so we figured we might as well have a name. And you look at so many family bands and it's like, oh, something family or like the siblings or sisters or brothers. And we didn't really want that. So we were like, the Carter sisters, it's kind of cheesy. The Carter girls just had a real better ring to it. So we were like, the Carter girls. It's just cooler. So we kind of just stuck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about your parents. Are they musical people?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I really don't know where we got our musical talents from, but mom and dad, they can barely play the radio some days. No, they were very supportive, but they didn't have a musical bone in their body, sadly. They always were the ones that drove us to the to competitions and camps and gigs. They always drove us though, so we're very fortunate for them, and I don't know what we would have done without them.
Well, I'm very glad to hear. So what instruments do you play?
I play the fiddle and the guitar well.
Mhm.
And then I know how to play piano and tenor banjo and mandolin. Mediocre, I'd say. Not the greatest at them, but I know enough theory that I can play them. And another thing that we did as well as taking fiddle lessons, we all started at the same time with step dancing. I've kind of drifted apart from that, but the girls all do step dancing as well. And so whenever we would go to camps, we would we'd have a fiddle class here, a guitar class here, and a step dance class as well. So kind of all did that. And I never did learn to do the accordion like Maisie, but that's one that I wish I would learn as well.
Mhm. So when did you guys move from New Brunswick to Newfoundland?
Well, the family still lives in Newfoundland or in New Brunswick.
Oh,
They still live there, they still go to school there, and they still work there. I came here for school, and I came in the summer 2021 in August, just before my school started in September. And we have a camper van, and we all just piled in the camper, and family of 6 plus a dog and this tiny little 2-person camper on the back of the truck, and we drove to Newfoundland, took the ferry, and yeah, it was an experience. A lot of people thought we were crazy, especially since there wasn't a lot of space. But I'm really glad we did. It was a really nice family trip, and I'm grateful to be here every time I'm here. I love it here.
yeah. Yeah, tell me about that. How's Newfoundland been treating you so far?
It's been treating me great, like especially like last year, obviously, was my first year here. I had to get a feel for things. I was new to the area, didn't know a whole lot of people, and especially musically, like I knew I wanted to pursue it here. And so I wanted to see like how I had to get my name out there. So I went to a lot of open mics. I went to a lot of trad jam sessions just to try and meet people, get my name out there, um, and just explore the different types of music that are here because it's very much Irish influenced here.
Mhm.
Um, and so I needed to get used to the music and get used to the people and the culture as well. And then I went back home for the summer because I had a summer job that I committed to, and I told them I'd be back, and we had a few gigs that I had to go home for. So I left at the end of June, and I was gone for 2 months. And then I came back for school in September, and I had a gig that I was asked to do in Newfoundland in August. So I was like, okay, I've got a gig, that's cool. And then in October, I got a few more. And then November, I got a few more. And then we started, a few friends and I, we did a Christmas tour in December. And then I started jamming with my now duo partner that I play with the most. And we've been getting gigs at least once a week on an average basis. And yeah, it's been crazy. And this is downtime, especially for a lot of musicians. So I'm very fortunate that I am as busy as I am, and I hope it only picks up from here.
Mhm. Yeah, how do you manage your studying schedule and also the music playing part as well?
It's a challenge some days, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, obviously, school, I remember last semester, it wasn't too bad. There was always one day a week that I didn't have school. And so that was fine. And, you jam and you go to rehearsals at nighttime and then you just juggle it. Um, you have to be, you have to not need a lot of sleep. That's the one thing I say. I swear I'm an insomniac at heart, but I'm living a regular lifestyle like everyone else. I'm very much a night owl.
Mhm.
And so I found gigging was always really easy, especially at nighttime, because I was always at my best. And this semester, I don't have a day off. I'm at school 5 days a week. And one of the gigs that my duo partner and I are doing a lot is a 9:30 to 1:30 in the morning gig. And I have class the next day. Luckily, not till 10:30, but it's a struggle. By the time you get home and you're still on the high from the gig, and you're just not ready to settle down, you're probably not in bed till like 3, maybe even 4 o'clock in the morning, and you have to get up 6 hours later. So you have to really make sure you can manage yourself on 5, 6 hours of sleep, sometimes even less.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, so what about school? Have you been enjoying the school program there?
Yeah, it's been really helpful. It focuses on music, business, and technology, but the one thing I wanted to get out of it was the business aspect, because I really wanted to just know myself, know how to work in the music business, whether that be um, a gigging job like I am right now, like a performer or a session musician in a studio, or whether that just be working for a management company and like hiring people and getting them gigs and being a booking agent. Like I wasn't really sure which aspect of it was gonna get me furthest in my career, but I loved every bit of the business aspect. So that's the one thing that I've taken from it, and that I've enjoyed the most would be the music business side.
I see. Yeah, I think it's important, I think, for all musicians, especially emerging ones, to sort of like get a foot in the business side of music, even when they don't commit to the that full time, because I think there's always an adversarial relationship between musicians and their labels, right? And of course, since you know Taylor Swift, she has her acrimonious battles with her label as well, and that's why you see her re-recording and re-releasing those songs.
Yeah, it's really good to know the business standpoint. And a lot of musicians, I mean, you talk to just any musician and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a rock star, a pop star," and they don't know how to manage their business and they don't know how to handle things. So of course, Taylor, she signed to the label really young and probably didn't read a full contract, or just didn't even realize that that could happen to her, to have all of her original recordings be sold off. And so it's unfortunate, but also it's giving her something to do during these times and something for us fans to really look forward to as re-releasing her new albums. So it's something um, that you really do have to make sure you understand, because the business aspect, it may not be as fun as the musical aspect, but it's super duper important.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I've had to learn, especially being not only with the oldest in my family, but the oldest in our band, is that I get a lot of the responsibilities. So like booking gigs, a lot of the time that came through me, and so I had to learn how to do that and manage our finances and things. And it became a struggle some days, but I'm glad I know how to do it.
Mhm. Yes. Just to dive deeper into that Taylor Swift drama, I'm from the scant knowledge I know of how music copyright works. So if you do a recording of your song, for example, like she did, the way it works is that if she is the principal songwriter, she owns the right to the song, the composition, but then the
Mhm.
label owns the master recordings. So
Yeah, exactly.
any and all form of distribution of that recording must go through the label itself, and so I think she was rather displeased at that.
Yeah, and she even tried to buy off her original recordings because of course they're yours, and if you're as successful as Taylor Swift is, money's probably not an object. So of course she'd want to get her originals back, but the label sold them and didn't tell her, and now she can't get them back, so that's why she's re-recording.
Mm.
And it's a shame, but she's making the best out of a really bad situation, which every Swiftie out there is very grateful for.
Mhm. Yeah. So for you, I guess, and from an emerging musician, how do you I guess think of the financial aspect of what your music can bring?
It's definitely tough some days. Like, obviously, gigs, you really have to have a backup plan. Um, because just relying on gigging is really hard. Um, you have to be gigging a lot, especially like right now. The standard rate for a gig that I get downtown would be 150 for a gig. And so that's fine and all, but you have to have a lot of gigs per week in order to just live off that.
Mhm.
So it's really, you have to have things. So like another thing that I have is recording. So I have a few studio friends that work in studios, and if they have a song that comes through and they know they want fiddle on it, or the artist has requested fiddle, um, I am one of their top choices depending on the style. So they'll give me a call, and that's normally $100 per track. It can be more sometimes depending on the person, but it's normally $100 per track. And so that's another thing. A lot of people also can teach fiddle music or teach any music for that matter. So you just have to have like, you have to have your feet in different aspects of the business, especially if you're just starting out, because to pay rent and to pay for all your bills, it's really hard. And music's not exactly the greatest job, so you really have to just make connections and have lots of different backup plans as well.
I see. Yeah. Um, so that brings us to your record with the Carter Girls, which is called Crossing Borders. So
Yes.
when did you guys record it?
Yeah, we recorded that. We started preparing for it late 2018. And then in April and May in 2019, we went to the studio to record it. A good friend of ours, Tyler Valrath, he lives in Moncton. And at the time, he had a house that had a studio in it that he built in, and it was called the Loft Studio. And we had just gotten to know him in the last couple of years, and we knew that he was interested in like recording albums. And so we reached out knowing that it was close to home. And he was really generous and was really understanding that it was our first album, and it was his first album for someone else. Like, it was his first time being an engineer for someone else's album.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a learning experience for all of us. And we had a great time recording the album. And so we recorded that April, May, and then throughout the whole next year, he worked at it and he did everything. He recorded, mixed, mastered, he did it all. And so we're really grateful for him to do that. And then we got the album, the masters back in, I want to say April. And then we worked on the graphic design part. And we worked with the wonderful Margie Beaton of the Beaton sisters from Cape Breton. She's a good friend of ours, and we knew she worked in graphic design. Um, and so she did our graphics for us. And then we did the duplications, actually out of St. John's, Newfoundland, at Atlantic Music. At the time, it was Atlantic Disc. And so Robert Buck, who owns that, he helped us do the duplications, and we released it in August of 2020.
No? So it was during COVID time, right?
Yes, unfortunately, this thing called COVID happened and really put a damper on our plans of touring and everything. So we didn't really get into touring, and I don't think we ever did because we all got so busy during COVID with other things. Um, so we never did, we never put it on streaming. We were going to, but we never ended up selling enough copies first to put it on streaming.
Mhm.
And we just didn't get enough gigs. There weren't as many gigging opportunities, and there still isn't back home anyways. So we still do have a lot of copies of it. And I brought a bunch with me over here to try and sell during my gigs, which has been a little helpful. And but yeah, COVID really put a damper on our plans and a lot of other musicians' plans, so it was a shame. But yeah, that was kind of the recording process.
I see. So it's not on streaming, but you guys have CD copies of it, right?
We have physical copies.
Hmm. Where can someone who's not from Canada buy them?
Well, we have a Facebook page, Instagram page, an email address. We have business cards, so we put them up wherever we've been traveling to. We put them up, and people have reached out, and we have Facebook friends that have reached out, all around the world, and we just send them to them. I mean, it's $20 a copy. We add in a little bit for shipping, but yeah, no, we've been really fortunate. We have a friend from Scotland that got one, and we have lots of friends from Germany and Spain that we have, so we've sent them off there as well.
Mhm. Well, so the album is titled Crossing Borders. So tell me about the story of how you come up with the title.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we live really close to the Nova Scotia and New Brunswick border. So the album cover itself is us sitting on the bridge that divides Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So that was like the first inspiration. We knew that that's kind of what we wanted the album cover to look like. But crossing borders also, in a broader term, means we've crossed so many borders with our music, whereas we've been to so many camps and festivals and contests. We've been to Cape Breton, we've been to Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and just we've crossed so many borders of not just provinces, but different styles of music as well. And on this album, it's really just we've got our own style, but it's also influenced by all the other styles and all the other places we've been to. And so we figured Crossing Borders was the perfect name to just kind of represent what our music is.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's a wonderful way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate that you guys haven't had an opportunity to perform your songs as a group yet. Right?
Well, we've performed them at a few different shows, but it's mostly just been locally. We didn't really get into touring. I would have loved to, but of course, COVID happened, and after COVID, change of plans happened. I was graduating, so I went off to school, and Marlies, specifically, Maisie as well, but Marlies more so, she got into curling. I mean, we were all kind of into curling as well as music. That was kind of our sport, I guess. And she got more competitive into it when I moved away. Of course. So her team did really well last year and this year. They went to U18 and U21 nationals last year, and she went again to U18 nationals this year. So she's been away for curling, and she's been like, at competitions and tournaments every weekend. And so with her being busy with curling and just all of us being in school and doing our own thing, it never really worked out. But during COVID, we did end up writing a lot more music because we couldn't tour and we couldn't promote it. And
Mhm.
so I'm hopeful that in the future we will get to record those songs and those tunes that we wrote because we were really busy. And, what better thing to do than to stay home and make music with your sisters?
I see. Yeah. So you've graciously sent me a few of the songs that you guys have recorded. It's off of the
Yeah,
album. I've listened to them. They are fantastic.
thank you
Um,
so much.
you mentioned that one of the songs, Air Canada, is the one that you personally have written. Yeah, tell me about
Yeah.
writing that one.
Yeah. So basically, like we knew what types of vision we wanted for the album. And with every album, there's got to be slow ones and fast ones, and like some that are in between. And we didn't really have like we had one song that we knew that was slow on the album, but we didn't really have a second one. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool if I could write one. So I just like I never put pressure on myself when I'm writing a tune. I just think, what if this happened? You got to be experimental with it. And so I remember I was like, it'd be really cool if we had an original, so we wouldn't have to pay royalties for someone or just ask permission again. So I just sat down one day and I had this line started in my head, and I had it for a few months there. So I just sat down and I played around with it, and Air Canada came about, and it's personally my favorite on the album. Not just because it's one that I wrote, but the way that Tyler brought it to life way better than I could have ever imagined it. And it's to this day, like the family and everything, it's one of our favorites to listen to just because of how amazing the studio version turned out.
I
So
see. Did you happen to name it after the Canada airline, Air Canada?
well, it actually had a funny story to it. Back then I want to say six, no, I would have been 15 at the time. So I wasn't a pro at fiddle tunes. Like I didn't really know the theoretical parts of fiddle tunes. So I just knew it didn't sound like a waltz at the time because of the way that we played it. And so I was like, oh, it must be an air, which is like a Scottish air, which is a different type of
Oh,
tune. And so at the time, I thought it was an air, and I only just realized when I started learning theory that it isn't an air. But I remember we went into the studio and we didn't have a name for it at the time. It was just like, the air and E that's in the key, it's in the key of E. And Marley's was playing on the piano to it, and she looked over and one of Tyler's music cases was there because he's a touring musician himself. And there was an Air Canada sticker on it. And she's like, why don't we just add an E to it? We call it Air Canada. And I was like, sure, we got no other name for it. Might as well keep it. And the name just kind of stuck. So, yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, I've had plenty of like experiences with Canada. None of Air Canada, none of them are good. So
Yeah, no, they're not the greatest airline.
yeah, and there's another song here called Trap Tunes with Tyler, and I'm assuming Tyler's the engineer, right? The recording engineer.
Tyler Ballrath, he's a fiddle player himself, so he's been one of my biggest inspirations. And we all do focus on our music in our family, but I'm the one that's pursuing it, so I want to say that he's inspired me probably the most. If you don't know Tyler, here's a little bit of a backstory. He's from Alberta,
Hmm.
and his uncle is Calvin Ballrath, which is one of the most famous fiddle players to come out of Canada, I'd say. He's written over 500 tunes, and he's really well known for his tune writing. And he's released probably 70, 80 albums over his time. And he's a good friend of ours as well that we've met at these fiddle camps. And so we heard of Tyler through Calvin, but then we also heard of Tyler through one of our favorite country singers. Like I said, we listened to a lot of country music growing up, old and new. And one of the new country artists to come out of Alberta was Brett Kissel. I don't know if you've heard that name, but he is probably one of the biggest ones to come out of Canada right now. And Tyler is his backup fiddle player. So Tyler's on tour with him all the time. And Tyler's wife, Becky, is Brett's assistant. And so it was kind of cool how that kind of played out. We went to one of Brett's shows through the school. They were doing a fundraiser in St. John, New Brunswick. And we went, and I was like, oh my gosh, that fiddle player is so cool. And then I followed him on Instagram. We got to meet. We ended up meeting Brett and then backstage one day at another concert of his, and the rest is just history.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I got to know a bunch of country musicians from Alberta based on doing this show, and I've never been to Alberta, but I really hope to be there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fun people, the country music Alberta scene.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to go at some point. The Calgary Stampede is on my bucket list.
Hmm. Yeah, tell us about that. What was it? I don't know that.
It's in Calgary, which is I don't know if it's the capital, but I think it is the capital of Alberta. I've never been to Alberta, but it's basically um horse races, I think.
Oh,
To be honest, don't really know the whole logistics of what the Calgary Stampede is. I just know they always have great concerts there, and I really would love to go see the country concerts because they get really good country artists to come.
mhm,
And so I would love to just go to a concert. I'm very much a concert goer girl. I love to go see live music, and I've loved it ever since I was a kid. So it's on
mhm.
my bucket list.
Yeah. So when's the last concert that you attended?
Um, Probably for big concerts, I'd have to say it might have been Brett. Um, Jeez, it's been a while because of COVID. I haven't really been to a whole lot of
Mhm.
concerts. Um, I want to say it was Brett Kissel actually in 2019 before COVID. He did his We Were That Song tour for I think it was his third studio album that's on Spotify. I don't know if it was his third in general, but I'm pretty sure that was the third one that he released on Spotify. And it was a great concert. And yeah, it was. I want to say that's the last one for country artists, like big artists that I've been to. Obviously, I've been to a lot of Celtic concerts and things, but they're not as big. Um, and another concert that was around the same time actually was the East Pointers. I
Mhm.
think we went a month later to the East Pointers, which are my favorite band in the whole world, and that was in Moncton, New Brunswick, and they put on a really good show as well.
I see. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the East Pointers. I had Tim on the show, Tim Jason.
Oh wow, yeah, Tim's good friends of ours, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I got to know Tim actually from Millie from Peterborough, and And yeah, we were talking about their latest album, which was recorded after one of their members passed away, right? Cody?
Yeah, Cody. We went, well, of course, the Tim and Cody and the Chasen family are the ones that put on the Roller Bay Fiddle Festival every year.
Oh.
And so that's how we got to know them.
Mhm.
So we had heard about it, but a month before we decided to go to Rolla Bay for the first time in 2018, I had just heard about their newest album at the time, which I was a little late getting into, was What We Leave Behind. And I had gotten the album copy, the physical copy, and I bought it on iTunes. And I streamed it so much. It was my most streamed album to date, probably. I know every note and every lyric off that album. And we went, and it was a great year. You know, it was our first time going, so it was just meeting people and getting to know these pointers and themselves. And then 2019, we went again, and that was probably my favorite week that I've ever gone to a music camp. It was such a good week, and I remember, speaking of Cody, I decided that my main instrument wasn't going to be fiddle. I decided that I was just going to do fiddle in the workshops, and that my main instrument classes was going to be tenor banjo because I had gotten one for Christmas because of Cody. So these pointers got me into the tenor banjo, and I personally have taken lessons from Cody. And it was really, really sad. And I cried for about 3 days when he passed away. It was really heartbreaking. And but yeah, their music's living on, and I'm so grateful for that. But um, actually thinking back now that you mentioned the concert thing beforehand, my last concert that I did see, now that I'm thinking about it, was these pointers, and I'm really glad that I did get to see them in concert.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd like to, I guess, make a tribute to the late Cody Chasen a bit. And I do not know him personally. I was introduced to the East Pointers' music after he passed away, but you have, so tell me about him.
He had a heart of gold. Like, he was just the nicest, most genuine person you could ever meet. And not only did I personally know this because he was my banjo teacher and I knew him personally, but when he passed away, like, the whole trad folk community blew up. Like, he had an impact on everyone. Everyone who knew Cody had a good experience. He had a heart of gold, and he was just the kindest hearted person you could ever think of. And he always made the best out of a bad situation. And he just made everyone smile. Like, I think back, and it's, if I start crying, it's because it's tears of joy. Like, he was such a good person. And like, all three of them were, but Cody, he was really special. Really special.
Yeah, and I want to talk about I guess, the larger Canadian traditional folk music community at large, because again, like I said, I was introduced to the Canadian folk music scene through Millie from Peterborough, Irish Millie, and I may sound like a 75-year-old here, but I'm really glad to see that like young people like yourselves who are, I think, younger than me now, are taking up like this great traditional music scene. And you can tell me about that community.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned like the young person thing, there are, like, when you think about it, a lot of the folk and trad and Celtic scene in Canada is made up of a lot of older people. That's just something that I've personally seen. I mean, obviously there are kids and young adults that are taking it up, like myself, but I know for certain, like, just here in St. John's, for instance, just as one spot, um, I'm probably the youngest gigging musician out there. There's not too many that are out gigging, and yes, the pub scene, you have to be 19 to do it, but all last year I went to trad sessions, and I was the youngest one there, and it was really hard to find people my age that were playing and inspired by this music. And I mean, I think and I hope that across Canada it's different. Like, I think in Ontario there's a larger community of people that are around my age that do play music that I've seen and I'm good friends with. But especially on the East Coast, there aren't too many, and you do take it for granted some days. And I really do hope that the younger generation, that I can do my part in keeping it alive. So I really hope so, because it's really special. A lot of people think it's just fiddle music and la da da, but it's special. When you go and you deep dive into it, it's its own thing, and it's really special, especially Eastern Canada. We have our own thing over here. And yeah, I love Celtic music, so I don't take it for granted.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear that. So speaking of streaming music, tell me
Mm.
about the most recent songs that you've had on your Spotify or Apple Music or Pandora playlist.
Is this just for Celtic and trap music or just in
Oh, just
general?
music in general, really.
Um,
I'd love to know which songs that you've listened to recently.
um, well, speaking about these pointers, they had a new EP come out that you're talking about.
Yeah.
They released a chilled version of one of their songs
Mm,
just on Friday, so that's on my liked songs on Spotify. My friend who's actually a first year in my program right now, and I've been gigging with him a few times. His name is Darcy Scott. He's a local artist here from St. Conception Bay, South Newfoundland, so basically St. John's area. And he's a country folk musician, singer, songwriter himself. And his new single, it's called Enough. It came out in February, and I've been streaming that a lot to support him. And also, it's just a really awesome song. And his album is coming out in May, so I'm very excited for that. If you get a chance to check out his music, it's really, really good. Um, and I think of who else I've been listening to recently. Um, oh gosh, my sister and I, we have a shared Spotify account, so our liked songs, we've got over 2,000 liked songs right now
mhm,
on Spotify. So it's a mixture of both, but um, another local artist, Nick Earl, his song "Born to Lose" is one of my favorites, so I know it's on there. And of course, any country artist that you listen to, like Sugarland, Thomas Rhett, Morgan Wallen's new album, actually, that's
mhm,
probably what's been on my mostly. He's got a 36 song album that just came out beginning of March, and it's been on
mhm.
repeat. So
Wow, that's incredible. Um,
yeah.
tell me about your I would like to ask so what are some of the, I guess, logistics behind, I guess, actually getting your album, the Carter Girls album on streaming platforms?
I don't think it would take much, honestly. I think I'd have to probably set up an artist account.
Mhm,
Or I could just go into I don't know if the duplications would be able to do it as well. I don't know if they have the ability to take the tracks if they still have them and put them up, but I think you can manually do it. I think if you connect your laptop to an artist profile, you could probably put them up there. The reason we haven't done it is mostly just it's for promotion reasons. And we've been so busy doing other things, and like Marlies is busy with sports, and Maisie's busy with schooling and farming and stuff. So we haven't really had the chance to tour a gig. So to put it up on Spotify, because you don't make a lot of money on Spotify for music,
yeah.
it just seems kind of like a waste right now. Eventually we will put it up, especially for family and friends, and make it a lot easier, I think. But
Mhm.
I don't think it would take much to put it up, really.
I see. I know that Bandcamp is a favorite for like independent emerging artists. So there's somewhere.
Yeah, maybe at some point we will put it up there as well. One of our favorite bands, Holler, they have a Bandcamp account for their album, and we have it on physical copy as well now. We got it for Christmas, but we always used to go and we bought it off of Bandcamp and we listened to it on our phones through that,
Mhm.
and it's a great album.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the advantages of Bandcamp is that when you pay for the music, most or all of the proceeds goes directly to the artist. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things I know a lot of emerging artists, locally here in St. John's, Newfoundland, but also just the whole East Coast that I've been talking to. They've all said nothing but good things about Bandcamp because it's probably the best streaming artist where you get the most money out of. So,
Mhm. Yep.
yeah.
So tell me about your other collaboration project is called Saving Throw, right?
Saving Throw, yeah. I'm actually at Megan's house, so it's with me, Megan Breen. She's the vocalist. She's also my best friend. And Dominic Flynn. He's a guitar player and vocalist as well. And we all met. They're both second years as well in my program, so we're all in the same program together. And it started off as a duo with just Megan and Dominic last year. And I was doing my own thing with fiddle, so I didn't think it would work. And then over the summer, they did some gigs, they wrote some songs. I came back, and then they asked me to be a part of the band in October. And we've done a few gigs together, but right now we're just kind of revamping our set list.
Mhm.
And it's a little different than what I normally do. for trad music per se. We do a lot of popular songs, so like Taylor Swift songs or like Panic at the Disco or Fall Out Boy, Paramore, anything. Just any
Mhm.
popular song that you would hear on the radio. We kind of do that, and it's kind of like an indie setting, so it's like fiddle, electric guitar or acoustic guitar and vocals. And it's just stuff that if you went downtown to like a club, instead of having a DJ, you'd have us, and it'd be kind of the same sort of music. So
Well, yeah. Do you guys plan on recording a record, an EP or something together?
yeah, we've talked about our future goals, and that's certainly one of them. We do need to write a few more songs before then, but um, we did like a 5 year plan, and I think it's at like year 3 or 4 where we start actually deep diving into that and releasing it at year 5. So hopefully in the next couple of years we'll get on that, and hopefully the band sticks together. And I mean, I'm sure it will. We're all really good friends outside of school, and it's just a lot of fun making music together.
Hmm. Yeah. So, tell me about a typical gig that you would do either on your own or as part of the group.
So by myself, a lot of the stuff that I do downtown, has gotten me a lot more opportunities by myself, actually. Being a fiddle player, a lot of bands downtown, want a backup lead instrumentalist. So we do Irish, Newfoundland trad songs, and I just do backup fiddle lines. So I'm just playing along in the verse, and then in between the verse and the chorus, I'll do like a little melodic line, and then they'll give me a solo, and I just provide backup vocals, backup just lines for people, just backup notes, just to add to the musicality of the song. And that's been getting me lots of gigs. Probably the most because of the style of music that's more prominent in the downtown St. John scene. It is the Irish and Newfoundland trad stuff. Um, and I do essentially the same thing with Saving Throw as well, but it's more so with the popular style of music, so it's a little different, and a lot of people won't expect it. But essentially, if there's an electric guitar part, you don't have an electric guitar player. Just do it on fiddle. What's stopping you? It's my memo.
Mhm. All right. So, what can we expect from you, Madeline Carter, in this year, 2023?
Well, Um, on top of being really busy just gigging downtown, I've got a few weddings that I've agreed to do for people. A few country artists have been in contact, and so hopefully there'll be a few gigs and potentially touring again. I know I did the Christmas tour with Darcy and a few other friends, and I know he's been doing some gigs, so hopefully I'll accompany him. I'll accompany my duo partner, Richard Parsons, downtown, and just gigging as much as I can, as well as doing more studio work. I would love to get into the studio more, and I think that once I'm done school, I'll have a lot more time on my hands, so I can just get back into it and potentially in the in the hopefully near future do a solo album. That would be really awesome, I think, especially since I'm so busy with music. Why not have a solo album to just tell people that I have and promote it for myself? So yeah, that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Oh yeah, I look forward to listening to your proposed solo album. And um, even though I'm not in Canada right now, I would really love to visit at some point and see you live, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know where I'll be at that point, whether I'll be in St. John's, Newfoundland, or Sackville, New Brunswick, or maybe even somewhere else. But yeah, if you ever do come to Canada, let me know and I'll let you know where I'm playing.
Of course. So final question, and this is one that I would conclude with every musician that I've had on the show. What does music mean to you?
Music is pure joy for me. It's the one thing in my life that I know I can count on. It'll always be there for me. And it's something that just makes me the happiest. Like, if I didn't have music in my life, I don't know where I would be. It's always gotten me out of tough times. It's always helped me, whatever mood I'm in. There's always some sort of music that'll help me. And playing fiddle is just the biggest joy in the world for me. And the one thing that I love about playing fiddle and playing music, more than anything, is that even though I'm pursuing a career in it, it doesn't seem like I'm pursuing a career in it. I'm doing what I love, and so it's just enjoyable for me. Like, it's not something that strikes me as, oh, I have to go to work when I do a gig. It's like, oh, I get to go play a gig. It's something that I look forward to. And and I love it. There's nothing in the world more outside of family and friends, I would say. I love music. It's my biggest thing in the world that I always love, and it'll always be there for me. I know it's not going to leave me, and my fiddle is my biggest my biggest claim to fame. I don't know what I would do without my one fiddle. But yeah, it's just the joy, and just when I'm on stage and you look out and you see people watching you and you're playing fiddle music and they've got smiles on their faces, that's what it's all about, just making people happy and seeing the joy that my music brings them, because it's not only bringing me joy, but it's bringing other people joy. And I think that's why I love music the most.
Well, that's a wonderful answer. I really love that. And
Thank
on
you.
that note, thank you very much, Madeline Carter, for being on this program. Yeah, you've been great, very
Thank you.
gracious with your time.
Oh
And
yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really fortunate to be able to do this with you.
yeah, likewise. And I wish you all the best with your music as well as your academic process. And you take care of yourself. Enjoy St.
Thank
John's.
you. Thank you so much. You as well.